Today we're talking all things long run, in particular 7 long run workout types that you guys can incorporate to help you run a faster marathon. So at this stage people are planning their spring marathons, and I thought it would be a good time to talk all about some of the different types of long runs that I like to do that can be really effective to get the most out of your marathon training in the build phase and the specific phase. So we'll start with the 3 long run workout types that I like to do in the build phase, which is typically for me anything 16 weeks and before my marathon training build. The next 4 will be anything 16 weeks and under, so really getting specific into marathon training, but these are the ones that can help you lay some good foundations and make you feel strong, ready for the more specific workouts. So the first one is just a simple easy long run. You might see it known as the LSR, the long slow run, whatever it might be. It's basically just going out there for time on feet, just going out there for 60 minutes, 90 minutes, 2 hours, whatever your ability level is. You're just going out there, running nice and slow, nice and relaxed, and keeping the effort really nice and aerobic. Now, this is a type of long run that I don't do too often, if I'm honest with you, because I really have found the benefits of mixing in some good long run workouts and what that's done for my running over the past. But for me, there is definitely a time and a place for these, and that is very much in that earlier phase of marathon training. And the next 2 ones that we're going to talk about are ones that I tend to lean towards more personally. So the second one is a progressional effort long run. I love progression long runs. They're such good fun and they just spice things up. They're just such a good type of long run to do. Now in this stage, in the build phase where you're not getting specific yet, I don't take these anywhere near top end paces. I don't tend to go into anything faster than marathon effort. For me, I just like to start really nice and easy and then finish with a little bit of marathon effort at the end. Good example, did one the other weekend where I did 20-minute progressional chunks, starting very easy, then got a little bit harder, a little bit harder, a little bit harder, and then I just put 10 minutes at the end to make it a 90-minute run, and that last 10 minutes was at marathon effort, and that was it. So it basically means you just keep it nice and aerobic, you don't go near your threshold. I'm not trying to achieve any sort of threshold work in this long run. This is just very much an aerobic exercise, and you're just starting really nice and relaxed and finishing, for me, in and around marathon effort. You might not want to go that hard, you might want to finish, just go easy to moderate, whatever it might be. Just taking it from one place to another can just spice things up a little bit. What you'll often find is that your average pace and your average heart rate ends up being very similar to what you might do on a steady long run, which we'll talk about in a second, but it just transpires that you've started a lot slower and finished a lot faster. It just makes things a little bit more interesting. And as I just alluded to, number 3, a steady long run. So these are one of my favorites. I do these probably the most in the build phase. I just enjoy running in that zone 2 type of effort. And again, this is all under your aerobic threshold. So zone 1 and zone 2 should be all under LT1 or whatever you want to call it. I call it the aerobic threshold. Before you tip into sort of like zone 3 and 4, this is very controlled. And I think that's a bit of a common mistake for a lot of people. So do beware when you're out there. When I'm running in zone 2, I can very much still hold a full conversation. I can still talk with full sentences. I'm not gasping for air. Zone 2 is a very controlled effort. It's just a little bit faster than zone 1, obviously. And for me, what I find with this is, again, it just adds a little bit of spice to the long run. You're still getting the same benefits. You are working a little bit harder. Obviously, your heart rate is going to be a bit higher. But I prefer it because for me, zone 2, I get into a good rhythm with my form. My cadence feels better. I can often find, like with the easy long runs, and again, it's why I tend to avoid some of those, is just because I can find my form to be quite sloppy running at slower paces. And so when I hit that zone 2, that's when I really kick into gear and feel a lot more controlled and in cruise control, really. So I love to do moderate zone 2 runs. They're brilliant in this phase, and I will carry those forward into my specific phase as well. And there will definitely be a time and a place for those. We'll talk about that now. And now let's talk about these next 4, which is when, let's imagine we're now 16 weeks out from our goal marathon and we're starting to plan that final 16 weeks. This is where we want to start incorporating something a little bit more meaty, start to get a bit more specific, put a bit more pace in there and start to really spice things up a little bit. So we're going to kickstart with an interval style long run. And I merged 2 into 1 here. So I like to talk about interval workouts as maybe sort of faster intervals like we might do on our midweek workout, or tempo intervals, and you can approach them in slightly different ways. Both of them require a longer warm-up and cool-down to make them a long run. So in my last marathon training block, I was doing sort of like 30-minute warm-ups and 30-minute cool-downs, and that could have been easy or steady. Zone 1 or zone 2, depending on whatever my coach prescribed me. And then at that point, I'd have a variety of intervals. So I might do something like 8 by 3 minutes and then a 60-second jog recovery. That might be a more classic interval session where although I'm not going as hard as I can, let's say on a midweek workout, I am pushing those intervals quite hard, and I am getting down to that sort of 10k effort. So I really am pushing. Again, the goal here is just to not necessarily practice surging. That's when the tempo intervals come in, but really kind of try and fatigue yourself when you're out there time on feet. For a longer period of time, and then that cool down at the end of that can be a little bit challenging, but it's all good to just get that fatigue, build the fatigue quite intensely during that middle section of the long run, and then manage that fatigue in the longer cool down as well. So the warm up tends to match the cool down. That's what I used to find. Or tempo intervals where it's more like surging in a race, and they've really helped me over the last couple of years in particular. And that might be more sort of like 5-minute intervals, 6-minute intervals, and you might try to be just kind of pushing 1 hour race pace, so a little bit faster than marathon effort, a little bit faster than half marathon effort, or in and around half marathon effort. So you're just going just above marathon effort, and you're just learning to just kind of push. Imagine in a race you might be trying to catch a pack up, or you might be trying to break a pack up, or you might just be feeling really good and you just want to push a little bit and catch the next pace group up when you're out there on marathon day. It builds confidence. It allows you to kind of get that understanding of your body. They will allow you to surge a little bit here and there if you want to. Again, just like the faster intervals, it builds fatigue during the middle of the long run, and then you have to, of course, do that longer cool down, which can be a bit of a challenge, but it is really, really beneficial. And just as a little bit of a spin-off from that one, progressional intervals are really, really good, but these tend to be sort of longer chunks of sustained specific pace effort. So let's say I did one in my previous marathon training, but which I found really beneficial, and on a down week, shall we say, on a down week where I was doing longer long runs, this one was put in as a slightly shorter long run. I still covered 16 miles, but I did a decent 20-minute-ish warm-up, and then I did like 40 minutes at marathon pace, and then I had like a 4-minute jog recovery, and then I did 20 minutes at half marathon pace, and then I had like 2 by 6 minutes at a 10k effort, and then I had like a 4-minute effort that was all out. And it is just a progressional kind of pace squeeze down as you go through the gears, and then a cool down, a couple of miles cool down at the end. And again, although we're talking intervals earlier where we're doing a set of like 6 by 5 minutes or 5 by 6 minutes, or we're doing shorter stuff like 8 by 3 minutes or 8 by 2 minutes, this is more a case of, well, there's 4 types of intervals. The duration is slower and longer, and as you get faster, the interval gets shorter and shorter, and you're just squeezing down. And at the end of each interval, obviously you're massively fatigued, you're feeling tired, but then you know you have to pick up the pace again. Yeah, not for very long, but it's still a real challenge. So I just wanted to throw that one in there. That's a really good one to do as well. And the 6th one I want to mention today is marathon pace long runs. These are, for me, these are key. These are one of the biggest things that you can practice during marathon training. That can come in the form of a big old chunk of marathon miles in one go, or it can come in the form of breaking that up into intervals. So in previous training blocks, I've done anywhere from like 13 to 16 miles straight of marathon pace in like a peak week, and that's felt really good. Massive confidence boost, just dialing in, and it allows you to practice fueling nutrition. It has other benefits to it as well, not just physiological, but it allows you to kind of almost sort of practice race day and go out there, fuel, wear the kit, all of that stuff, and get 16 miles at what you feel like a marathon effort should be on that day, and that's really, really quality. I love that. And then also you can break those marathon intervals up into shorter things like 2k efforts, 3k efforts, 4k efforts. You can do cut downs. So like if you want to get really, really advanced, you can do things like 7k, 6k, 5k, 4k, 3k, 2k, 1k. You can do some big, all at marathon pace, off a k float. You can do some big stuff. These are all well documented workouts out there. A lot of athletes do them. They're just really, really popular. Those particular sort of broken up ones have kind of been made famous by Canova, a coach called Canova. And my previous coach used to get me to do them. I've also done them with my current coach as well. And I like to give them to my athletes too. I just think they're really, really beneficial. And as I said, the longest straight chunk of marathon pace, again, it's just that mental battle. Can I go 15 miles, 16 miles in training at marathon effort? How does it feel? And yeah, it's just a really, really good one. I can't stress enough. If you can get some marathon specific work done in your long run, it really can be a good one. And the final one I want to mention is a negative split long run. Now for me, this crosses both the build phase and the specific phase. I love to do this in the build phase because again, it just builds confidence with progressing through a long run. So for me, I like to do like an out and back long run. So I run a specific amount of time out one way and then back the other way. And I make sure coming back is faster than on the way out. And that's usually in my build phase in the form of like easy out, steady back. Or in a specific phase, it might be steady out, marathon effort back, whatever it might be, and for whatever duration it might be. What this does for me, and I'm sure for you guys as well if you do them as well, massive mental boost when you know you can kick in the second half of a long run and come back faster. Regardless of if you go out easy and you know that it should on paper be nice and controlled, there's not a better feeling I don't think than when you come back and you've negative split a long run. So this one is a real good confidence booster. I like to put it in for my athletes when they're in not necessarily down weeks, but if they've done a lot of marathon pace effort and they want to then kind of have a bit of a week off from a long run where there's hitting specific paces, we'll just throw in a decent length long run that they can go out at a certain pace, turn around and come back at a certain pace. It really is a good one. I love doing them and I know you guys do too. So there we go. Those are 7 long run workout types that I love to do in my training, have done in the past, will do now, and I'm sure we'll continue to do in the future. Ones that I love to prescribe my athletes, and I'm sure a lot of you guys do some of these too, but hopefully you might have picked up 1 or 2 new ideas from here that you can incorporate into your next marathon training block and of course get that faster marathon PB, which I know you guys can do. Would love to hear from you down in the comments below as well. What's your favorite long run workout? I'd love to hear if it's just a nice, easy, slow long run. If you've got something specific that you love to incorporate in your marathon build up, it'd be great to hear those thoughts too. Share your ideas. It would be brilliant to hear those in the comments below. That's it from me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do consider giving it a like, share it with your friends, and of course, subscribe to the channel for weekly running content. I'll see you in the next one. Until then.